Hello, I'm Ed Parcaut, the host of Helping the Brave, and let's bring in our guest today. It's How you doing, Brian? Brian Fleming, thanks for coming on the show.
Hey, I'm doing pretty great. Thanks.
All right, and we talked beforehand before we went live that you were on here 3 years ago, which is shocking that I've been doing this thing for 3 years. It's just you do it every week and you keep going. We used to do it live on YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook, but then people wouldn't show up. And so now we do it as a podcast and then we put it out to everywhere after that. So, but thanks for being here. And so we're going to start off. What service were you in?
I was in the Army.
And why did you pick the Army?
Well, I
Not that
went to
it's the wrong answer. I just
no,
question.
yeah, 9/11 had just happened in '01, and I graduated in 2003 from high school. And I originally went to join the Marine Corps. And when I got to MEPS, the doctor asked me and said, "Hey, checklist. Have you ever had pneumonia in your life?" And I said, "I don't know. Maybe when I was a kid. Who knows? I don't have any medical records or anything." Instant block. Six,
Really?
7 months, 6, 7 months go by, can't get a waiver. The recruiter's like, dude, I told you to say no to everything. And I was like, I know. I don't know why I said yes to. And so I'm like, basically, it's like May and I'm about to graduate. And I go to the Marine recruiter. I'm like, dude, I need to know what I'm doing, in the next 3 months. And he said, I don't, we're having a hard time getting that waiver, and at this point, I'm a cross country runner. I'm running circles in PT around these recruiters. And so I'm obviously fine. Well, then the Army recruiter comes up and goes, hey, we have infantry, and we'll even give you $5,000. I said, sign me up.
Yeah, I had one person say, "Well, the reason I joined is because because they were looking at the same thing, and they went with who they went with because they took them out for a steak dinner."
I wasn't that cheap of a date. I was more like, hey, I wanted to join because my brother joined the Corps, and I was like, well, I think I want to do that too. And it just didn't, pan out, and everything happened the way it was supposed to be.
Right, and so you're infantry,
Hmm.
no specialty in the infantry, or
I was a team leader in our battalion scout sniper platoon. I wasn't a sniper. I didn't go to sniper school, but I was a team leader in one of the scout squads. We had two scout, two sniper squads, and so I was a team leader in one of those squads when we got deployed to Afghanistan with the 10th Mountain Division.
okay. I don't know if you could hear him. I have my American bully in here, and normally he's really quiet. Usually he snores, you can't hear him, but he was sneezing, which is unheard of for him to be sneezing like that. Did you hear him at all?
I didn't hear anything, but you have the
Okay.
same microphone I do, and that's probably why.
Yeah, well,
It's a good one.
they're the real. There's another one I have that's really good too, but this one makes my voice even deeper than it already is. So that's what's good about it. Yeah, once I saw and you said you had everything that you're supposed to, and that's one of the. If you're listening to this and you want to come on anybody's podcast, please have the right equipment. You need to have a really good mic. You need to have good high speed internet. And what I mean is not you got to be careful with like Comcast and certain that's cable systems. They're down there. It's not the download, it's the upload. You need to have a good upload. Because I had a guy once and he's like, oh, I got 20 upload. This ain't gonna work. Reboot your router and come back in and see what you can get. He came
Well,
back.
my whole setup, I've been a professional speaker for over 16 years, and so when COVID and everything happened back in 2020, I got doing a bunch of virtual events. Well, I got the good cameras, the good lighting, obviously, a Shure SM7B, incredible and very expensive microphone. I saw it, I thought, Joe Rogan uses this microphone. It's probably a good one, and so I have a full studio setup because of that. Because I'm not going to go cheap when I'm doing virtual events or podcasts like this. I don't go cheap. It doesn't I'm not going to do that. There's no way.
No, it's got to be good because I had somebody
Yep.
else who's like, you can hear the echo difference when you're not using the right mic. And like, so I don't know, I use Apple for the longest time, and then they did an update, and I couldn't connect to my Sony cameras at all,
Wow.
at all. And so it took them up until July to make the fix. Well, the problem is my lighting was set up for the Microsoft, and now go to Apple. I got red. I don't know if you can see, I'm a little red today versus like you are. I'm normally like that.
Well, I have a Logitech Brio 4K webcam too, so that helps.
Yeah, but mine's a freaking mirrorless.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah, there should be no issue, but it's
Yeah,
just
I've
because
got one of those too.
it's just because it has not worked. I have to go in now and refresh the color settings and
Oh,
everything else.
jeez.
You know how it is.
Yeah.
So we're going to tell you. So if you're going to do any of this stuff, there's a lot more involved than just getting, and there actually, I told a lot of people if you're first starting, there's a Avaya, AVAYA webcam that you can get on Amazon. It's like $190, and it's 4K. What's nice about it, it can zoom in and zoom out.
Oh, wow.
Have to go right, go up, go down. It's perfect to get started.
And that's not a bad price for someone starting either.
No, that's a
Yeah.
perfect and because even you there, I mean, we won't get into equipment, but even more. But there's this one ATR. I can't remember. It was one of the first mics I bought. It was $100 on there, and
AT2020 USB mic?
it was a USB mic, but I
Yeah,
can't
I
remember
used to
that.
have that one.
Yeah, it's really good
Yeah.
because you don't have to worry. But once you start going up to these, then you have to get some type of board, some other power connector. Because I do another podcast with a friend of mine, and he has this mic, but he has it connected to USB. You can tell the difference.
Oh, yeah.
There's not the power in there that you need. So,
Yep.
are we done talking about mics?
Again, it's good to have your equipment and trust your equipment. Get the
That's
best you
right. Well, it's
can.
the same thing as being in the military.
That's
You
right.
don't know your equipment and you don't take care of it.
That's
When
right.
you need it, it's not going to be there for you.
That's right. It's just like a saw, man. It's a great machine gun until you need it.
Yeah, I was in the Navy. We didn't even shoot guns. But when I went to Vegas, friend of mine has the Machine Gun Vegas. And so we went in there. I don't know if you ever go to Vegas, go to Machine Gun Vegas. It's a shooting place. They have
Okay.
everything like that. To
Nice.
shoot. Yeah, I shot the saw. I shot all that stuff. My son's like, "Oh, I shoot this all the time." He's in the Army.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Everything he was in there, he was like, I shot all that. What do you want to shoot, Dad?"
The only thing I really want to shoot at this point I haven't touched is a minigun. That's one weapon I haven't fired, and I'd love to, you know, when next time I have $5,000 burning a hole in my pocket, I'll go buy a few hundred rounds and go through them in 10 seconds.
That's all right. I'll pass.
Same.
That's a lot
You
of
know
money.
what? There should be a veteran nonprofit for that, for shooting therapy. And all they do is buy guns and ammo, and we
Yeah,
all
well,
go out in a big field in Texas somewhere or the desert, and we just shoot stuff.
yeah. Well, I mean, Nevada has good laws on that kind of stuff too.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Somebody
because the
take
same guy
note.
that has that Machine Gun Vegas, they also have a compound, and you can shoot out of helicopters.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
so
a good like
they
Nevada
have
or
it.
Texas thing. Yeah.
They have everything. Yeah, with California, no. Yeah, they're trying to take everything.
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk about. So, how long were you in?
I was in for just 4 years, just a little over 4 years, 4 years and 3 months, and that was just because they held me over, because I got medically put out.
Right, because we haven't got there yet. But one of the things I want to talk about is I don't want to set it up. Just while you're
Yeah.
in, what happened to you? Why don't we go with that?
Yeah, I deployed to Afghanistan in 2006 with the 10th Mountain Division. Like I said, I was a team leader in an infantry platoon, and while I was there, uh, about a month after I arrived, April 18th of '06, my
Brian,
vehicle.
before I get in there, what's Mountain Division? All right, so my son was in he was in airborne, then
Mhm.
now he's in cavalry,
Okay,
but then they're closing that down.
okay.
So what is the Mountain Division?
The 10th Mountain Division is a light infantry mountain warfare unit that, when it was formed, uh, way back, I mean, decades ago, World War II, they were used highly for specialized training in alpine warfare, skiing, things like that in war zones. That's what they were used for back then. And
So
so
like
it's
Russia?
yeah, it's a light infantry unit. It's just generally speaking, they've specialized in mountain warfare.
Okay. Sorry, I just
Yeah,
wanted to clarify
yeah.
because if I didn't know it, maybe somebody else didn't know that.
Yeah, it's I mean, you hear about the 82nd Airborne
Right.
Division or the
That's all you
101st
hear about.
Airborne.
Yeah.
They jump out of planes, they rappel out of helicopters, they're airborne. Ours is a mountain division, so generally, which is funny because I was stationed in Louisiana at a 4th Brigade they set up for some reason before sending us to Afghanistan, which has mountains. Clearly, Louisiana did not. That's what we call military intelligence. But anyway, I digress. But yeah, I was in Afghanistan. Month after arriving there, we ran over a double stack of anti-tank mines in the road. IED, it blew up my vehicle, set it on fire. Um, 2 guys injured, returned to duty a month later. I was not injured in that one, thankfully, but uh, I started having symptoms of TBI that I was unaware of. Headaches every day, short-term memory issues. I was forgetting things. Uh, my squad leader and I, we tended to butt heads more than usual, and I thought, it's just the combat. We're over here. But I actually found it seemed like I was I was starting to sometimes forget things I knew to do. So I sort of understood what was happening, but it was on a very low level, I just thought, he's being a dick and I'm being a dick. It's in and out of the fob every day. People are stressed out. So, I gave it that. I sort of thought it was that until July 24th of '06. I was in the front passenger seat. I was the truck commander of the lead vehicle of about a 15 vehicle convoy, and we were about 2 miles away from the main gate to Kandahar airfield. And a suicide bomber came out of nowhere, got up next to right up next to my door, pulled up, slammed into my door, and exploded. Blew himself into a million pieces. He went everywhere. The van went everywhere. I woke up laying face down in a ditch on the side of Highway 1 in Kandahar. I had no idea what happened. My first thought was, why would I go to sleep here? Because I didn't remember laying down there. And then I thought, oh, maybe we're in a firefight. Well, nobody was shooting, and I couldn't find my weapon. It was still in the vehicle, and I was not. And then uh, my medic was helping out my gunner, who had taken shrapnel and burns. He and I were both burned, second degree on the face, and then he took shrapnel. I was burned second degree on the face and neck, which is healed now. Third degree on both my hands. And yeah, medic took care of us. Called in the 9 line. Got the birds coming to medevac us within the half hour. We were so close to Kandahar airfield. That was really convenient. And yeah, the suicide bomber was the only guy who died that day. And so my hat's off to him. Mission accomplished.
All right. So what are your lasting injuries from that? Besides, got to be something, in the brain. And I don't
Yep.
mean that wrong. It's just the impact from it.
Yeah, multiple blast injuries. I mean, both of those explosions went off within 3 or 4 feet of me. And so the shockwave of that definitely influences your brain health. I had, skin grafts on both my hands, from my legs. And so they grafted because those were third degree burns. Mentally, or with my head, I had a traumatic brain injury, as you can imagine, mild or a couple mild ones. And, it just sort of made those injuries worse. I had referenced a few minutes ago, the headaches, the short-term memory issues, the hypervigilance. It sort of magnified a lot of those symptoms. So I spent 14 months at Brooke Army Medical Center, burn treatment, reconstructive surgery, as well as occupational and physical therapy for my hands, and then the treatment for TBI and PTSD, things like that.
I assume you're still going through some of the treatments.
No, not really. I kind of avoid the VA like the plague. I'm never more pissed off than when I have to go do something with the VA. I want to live my life and be left alone. That's just me personally. And so,
Right.
but I'll tell you what I have done though. There are two things I've done that have been these things should have been given to me the day I got out of the hospital. Hyperbaric oxygen therapy. That took away my 13 years of headaches after Afghanistan. And the first week of 4 weeks I did hyperbaric oxygen therapy, my headaches went away. They've never come back.
Wow.
My memory got better. I was more clear-headed. The word finding was not as hard. I could pay attention better. So there was that, and there was psychedelic assisted therapy, medically monitored psychedelic assisted therapy. Those two things absolutely transformed my life for the better. I could have saved myself 13 years of hell and 13 years of my wife and kids dealing with me as a war veteran. I could have been so much better for them if I would have had those two things right off the bat. But I didn't, and thankfully I was able to get to them when I did.
So you said hyperbaric chamber,
Hmm.
right? And what does that overall do for you?
Yeah,
So for someone trying to understand,
yeah.
what is
Yeah, you lay in an oxygen chamber for an hour at a time, twice a day. I did it 5 days a week for a month. So I did 40 treatments in a month. And what it does is it pumps pure oxygen into your brain. You're monitored by a doctor or nurse the whole time who specializes in hyperbaric. And when your brain gets oxygenated, everything gets better. Parts of they did a brain spec scan before and after the 30 days, before treatment and after. There were parts of my brain that were gray on the skin beforehand. And then afterwards, I would look at it and there's these yellow and green and red and these different colors. And I remember asking the guy, I said, "Hey, what are all those colors on the before and after? There was gray before, now there's lights. It's lit up like a Christmas tree." I said, "What is all that?" He laughed and he said, "Oh, that's called brain activity." He said, "Parts of your brain that weren't functioning properly are now functioning properly." He said when he looked at my scan originally, he said, "You have headaches every day, probably. You have memory issues. You probably lose your balance some." It's like I never met this guy, and he knew my life. And he said, "Oh yeah." So afterwards, he goes, "Well, I bet you had this go away. This has probably gotten better." And I said, "Yeah, everything. You're dead on. It's like you've known me your whole life." And when your brain gets the proper amount of oxygen, everything works better.
And how did you come across that?
I came across that through my friend Debbie Lee. Her son Mark Lee was a Navy SEAL. Unfortunately, who was killed in action, and she has a foundation. And I happened to find it through her, and now I've been fortunate to get several treatments. A few different times through once through her organization, and then another one through an organization out of Boca Raton, Florida, called the 22 Project.
Okay. Because I mean, some people use that to excel themselves in sports. Other
Hmm.
people use it for in case you got the bends because you came up too fast for
Yep.
being in underwater. And that's what most people think about that of those.
Oh, it's great for the brain. And the thing is, I have friends. I have access to hundreds of guys like me who have been through hyperbaric, and literally we all had the same story. My word finding's better. I sleep better. I'm less hypervigilant. My headaches went away. My memory's better. My short term. It's no matter what state they're in. After this, it's like we all had the same story. And the thing is, that's what all the pills the VA and the military has been throwing at us for years. They've been trying to help balance all this stuff and do these things. During this training, I didn't take any medication. I just laid there and watched Rick and Morty for a month while I was breathing pure oxygen. Yeah.
That's funny. Yeah, because I'm against. I don't like the VA. I'd prefer they scrap it and just give everybody insurance so that you can go anywhere and get taken care of the way you want to get taken care of. And I
Yeah.
had another gentleman I interviewed. His podcast just dropped last week. What's his name? While I think about it, grab it over here. He had problems with the VA from the 80s, but now he's done it so much that anytime he calls and he helps somebody, they just give him what he wants because of how much work he's done with the VA.
Wow.
D. Paul Fleming. So
Another Fleming. I don't think I know him.
yeah, that's why he kind of threw me off today. Yeah, too many in order. But yeah, so I mean, and he was about the same way. He wants to take it down to its bare minimum and then just start over. So
Yeah.
yeah, document and please, there are good people who work for the VA. It's just the system, and the system right now
It's
that
totally the
was
system.
yeah, the system that's set up now where what Trump did is he said you can go anywhere. Well, now they kinda you gotta get approval first. That's BS. That's not what it was beforehand. So,
Yeah, when you get the politics and the system and all that bullshit in a way, it screws everything.
yeah.
Unfortunately,
Now, from this, you started telling your story.
yeah, I never meant to do it.
No one ever does. No one wants to come on a podcast and talk about what happened to them either. Nobody wants to share their story to help other people when in the reality, by sharing your story, you're gonna help yourself and other people. So, tell us how that all started.
Yeah, it all started when I was recovering still at Brooke Army Medical Center, and this guy named Dave Reaver came through the medical center. He was an injured Vietnam vet, and he came through and he was burned in the face, burned half his body off, white phosphorus, and he survived it. Well, he came through, did some resilience training for me, and this resilience training for me and like 30 other guys who've been blown up, shot up, messed up, burned up, mutilated. And we were there at Brooke Army Medical Center, and he's telling his story, and he can't tell his story of pain without making us all laugh hysterically. The guy is just awesome. And afterwards, I started talking to him, and he basically said, "Well, Brian, if you want, I'll show you how to do something with all this," meaning my injury. And I saw a guy who had been in my shoes, but he didn't stay there. He'd been very successful in business, very successful as a speaker, had written some books. He was married to the same woman for over 50 years, who he married right before he went to Vietnam. Very, very similar to mine and my wife's story, except we're going on 19 years, but we got married 3 months before I went to Afghanistan. So I met this guy, and basically 2 months later, I get a call a month later from his office, and she says, "Hey, Louise," she says, "Dave is doing this event. Manhattan, Kansas, right outside, I think it was Fort Riley. And he'd like to bring you. And I said, okay, well, the military doesn't pay me that much. How much are plane tickets? She goes, oh, it's free. We'll cover everything. I said, okay, well, I grew up poor. So if you offer me something free, I'll take it. And I did. I got up. Well, I was still covered in burn bandages. I was still recovering. My face was still kind of red from the burns. This is only, I met him 5 months after my injury. This was like a month or two later. It was March 15th, actually, of '07, the day exactly. And I'm sitting in the front row. He's talking halfway through his speech. I don't even remember if he told me he was going to do this. He looks right down at me in the front row, points at me, and says, "Come on up here, Brian. Tell him about yourself." And so I'm like, "Well, shit. Okay." Like, I get up there, hands me the mic. I didn't realize the whole auditorium had filled in. There were 3,000 people there. And so he said, "Take 2 minutes and tell him what happened." And I said, "Hey, I'm Brian. I got blown up. I guess I'm still here for a reason. Go for it." It was something like that. Probably the least motivational speech ever. But what happened, what changed my life is what happened when I stepped off stage. There was a young lady who came up to me. I couldn't even tell you her name. She comes up to me and she goes, "Hey, Brian, I was raped and molested as a child and as a teenager, and I was abused by my boyfriend." She was probably 23, 24 at this time. And she said, "He broke up with me. He was abusive." She said, "2 weeks ago, I tried to kill myself, but I failed." And I had no idea what to say to this lady. I was just sort of stumbling, stammering, like, "Gosh, I'm so sorry. Glad you're still here." And she goes, "But if you can survive all that, if you can get through everything from Afghanistan," she said, "I think I can keep going and get through this." And something came out of me I didn't know was in me. All I knew is because I shared a piece of my story, even quickly, and I didn't have any advice for her. This lady's not going to go home and drink a bottle of pills tonight. She's not going to go home, put a pistol in her mouth, and pull the trigger. And so I told Dave that night. I said, "Dave, I don't know what happened tonight, but I have to keep doing this." Like, and he goes, "Well, no worries. I'll show you how." And he did. And I've been doing it over 16 years now. And here's the thing: it's not when I speak, it's not just me telling my story. Me talking about my story is only about 10% of my speech. It's not me projecting to the world, "Hey, I got blown up," and they go, "Wow, that must have sucked. What was the point of his talk?" No, my story is about 10% of my talk because as a professional speaker, you need to solve people's problems. So the platform is my story. But what I talk about is lessons I learned through my story and how they apply to your life and help you solve the problems you're facing. That's the real value of sharing your story. It's not just getting up and saying, "Man, I got blown up for like 60 minutes." It's you don't want people walking away not knowing what to do with that. And so that's one thing that makes me different because I had to learn that. First 3, 4 years, people are saying, "Hey, come tell your story and we'll pay you." And they're paying me in 30 minutes what I used to make on a month or 2 months in the military. So I'm like, "Well, you want me to come talk? I'll talk to your dog. You're going to throw money like that at me." But I learned that the power in our story isn't just sharing our story, it's pulling some lessons out of it and showing people how to apply it to their lives so they can win the battles they're facing. That's the key.
Right. And what is one of those lessons you learned?
Oh, I mean, your story has power. If you can position your story in a way that solves people's problems and you can communicate it effectively, which is not very hard to do, you can there's pretty much nothing you can't do. I mean, if you want to have a nonprofit and you want to promote it, raise money, make a difference, or maybe you want to be like me where you just want to be able to share your story and go around and give keynotes at conferences and conventions. If you want to have maybe a podcast or write a book or something like that, it's all the same branding positioning stuff. It's really knowing how to clarify your message and have a very clear and compelling message that relates to people and helps them solve problems. Like if anyone heard me say that right now, if you got that and you apply it, I probably just made you a millionaire if you'll apply it long enough in business. Because that's what all business is. And this is business. It's absolutely business because I can't help a lot of people if nobody knows about me. And I have to throw money in it.
No, my question was,
Yeah.
what is one of the things of what you learned how to help, not how you help people, but how, when you're in your talk, and you're talking to the audience, what's
Mhm.
one of the things to make them relate to where you can help them?
Oh, one of the points, I have 3 points I make in my main keynote. The second point is talking about having mentors in your life. You know, in the military, we have a chain of command. But it's interesting, we get out of the military and suddenly we we sort of get this amnesia. Like we forget everything we were trained to do in combat and how it applies to our lives. And so you think about if somebody's struggling in a particular area of their lives, and these are audience members, maybe they're on the same track, maybe they're trying to accomplish the same things. Well, with the chain of command, you have somebody above you who's leading you, who's better trained than you. You have people beside you who are also on the path with you, who are your buddies. And then you also have people below you who your task is to train them up and lead them to be better. And they're kind of depending on you. So look at yourself like an E5. You're a team leader, you got your E6 above you.
Brian, I didn't even get to an E5. You wouldn't even, that's why I got out.
Okay, well, just
I'm
imagine.
just keep going. I'm just,
Yeah, yeah. You have somebody
I
above
wasn't
you.
in the army. Army makes rank fast. All right.
Okay.
Navy doesn't.
I
Yeah.
oh, okay. I wasn't aware.
Yeah.
But so yeah, I mean, look at your life. Where what are you trying to accomplish? Where are you struggling? Who's in your chain of command? Who are you following? Who can help you get there? Usually it's nobody if you're struggling really bad, but they just haven't thought, hey, I could reach out to this person or that person. And one piece of advice can keep you going for a year.
Wow.
The thing is, when you're in your own battle fighting it, you have the fog of war. And so you can only see from your own vantage point, maybe 5 or 10 feet in front of you because you're the one on your own battlefield. You might know things that work, but you're not focusing on them because you're in your survival mode. You're in the fight. The pilot up in the A-10 who's flying over your battlefield, providing close air support, he can see your battlefield from a way different perspective and a better perspective. And that person, even though they don't know what it's like to be you, they can guide you, tell you what to do and where to go or not go because they can see things on your battlefield you can't. So think about it. If you're trying to do better in life, well, who's leading you in that area of life, and what community do you have of people who are on the same journey as you? But also, who are you helping and mentoring? Because a lot of people, they'll give up, they'll commit suicide, worst case scenarios. Usually, if you have people depending on you and they're following you, sometimes we will do things for other people we won't do for ourselves. Some people, if it's just them, they'll go, well, to hell with me, it's just me. But if it's like, oh, well, if I'm the light and the leader for these guys, and if I kill myself, well, what's that mean for them? Are they going to have zero hope then? Like, man, we thought he was the rock, and now it didn't work. Like, maybe we're in danger of succumbing to this too. I don't know. I mean, we'll hang on and do things for other people we don't always do for ourselves, and so that's one of the big reasons to have a chain of command in the important areas of your life.
I totally agree. So do you help other people tell their stories?
Yeah, I
Or
do.
what do you do? I mean, because I know you speak, and what else do you do?
Yeah, I show other people how to make a difference telling their story. Because over the years, I've had people come up to me at my events afterwards and say, "Dude, how do I do what you do? I have a story to share. I I want to use my story, whether it's giving a keynote or, like I said, maybe they want to start a nonprofit, have a fundraiser, promote. That all requires public speaking. It's getting out there with a message that it matters and it hits home for people. And you don't learn this in college or school. Nobody really teaches it, not the right way. And so I created a uh, program after 16 years of doing this successfully myself called Use Your Story at useyourstory.com. And I show trauma survivors and people with unique life stories who want to share their story how to make a difference through speaking, and also how to make their first $500. So if you go to useyourstory.com, you're going to see the Share Your Story roadmap. It's a free resource. It's a one-page PDF and one very short video explaining exactly how to put your story together and go out and make your first $500 speaking. And again, the reason I talk about the $500, I don't want it to sound like a marketing gimmick. If you can't be financially productive, you're not going to go anywhere. It's like my mentor told me. He said, money is the grease on the machine. It's not the reason we do it, but it's the grease on the machine. And if the machine ceases up and stops working, nothing works. And so you need to know how to be financially productive. And you can obviously make way more money in speaking than that for whatever reason or cause you want. But when you figure out and know how to do that first little bit, everything gets easier. You figure it out. And so that's what I show people how to do now, because so many people have stories that matter and they're not my story, it's their own story. And they can reach other people I can't reach who relate to them. And so we need to get those people empowered and equipped, and they can go out and do what I do. And so that's my mission with that.
Wow. Yeah, because there's a lot more people out there. I mean, just in California, it's 40 million people. So if you figure, so you can't help everybody. So you need other people to do more. So, wow, Brian, thanks for coming back on Helping the Brave. I know it was 3 years ago. You don't even remember, and that's okay. It's just one of those things. I was like, that name sounds. When I saw your picture on just when I was getting ready for the show, I was like, that name and face looks familiar. So I had to go all the way, and I couldn't. It was like 3 years ago, almost to the day.
Is it really to the day?
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. Because we started like in August when we started doing it. So
Nice. Well, thanks for having me on. I always love coming back on these podcasts like yours, and let me know if I could be of any further value for you all.
well, I appreciate it. And everybody go out and go to useyourstory.com. Download his PDF, check it out, get your story out there because you have a story. And if you want to talk about your story here first, just reach out to us at info@helpingthebrave.com. Again, Brian, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thanks for having me.